This game is relentless. I've been shot, exploded, crushed, and trapped within a glowing maze of death more times than I can even remember. But despite this, I still keep coming back for more. How did they make the game so intensely challenging without also making it intensely frustrating? Let's break it down. The dodge roll is the linchpin of Enter the Gungeon's design. When dodge rolling, you're completely invincible from the moment you leave the ground until the moment you touch back down. You can dodge any and every hazard while you're in the middle of a dodge roll. In traditional bullet hell games, the player doesn't have access to this kind of invincibility. Instead, you're forced to carefully tiptoe around every single bullet. This means that the bullet patterns must always have a safe pathway through them. If they don't have a safe pathway, the player will get trapped and be doomed to lose.
That's a lot of damage!
When you consider that these games spam the screen with hundreds and hundreds of bullets, it's not hard to notice a tension. There has to be a passageway through the bullets, but this passage has to be extremely tight for the game to be challenging. This tension means that bullet hell games are actually really hard to design. A lot of care and attention has to go into each enemy to ensure that their patterns sit right on that knife edge of being just barely possible. You also need to take a lot of care when combining enemies because their joint attacks could easily create an impossible pattern. This is why most bullet hell games follow a linear campaign with the same hazards every time. This is a big problem for a roguelike, which depends on heavy randomization, and that's why dodge rolling is so essential to Enter the Gungeon's design. By giving the player a powerful defensive option, it helps them stand their ground against the onslaught of bullets. These patterns can actually be impossible to evade on foot, and it doesn't even matter. You can just leap right through them with complete invincibility. Of course, invincibility can easily become broken. Enter the Gungeon tempers this by making you temporarily immobile after ending a dodge roll. This means that your roll has to be aimed. You can't just spam it blindly or you end up rolling into danger rather than out of it. So to sum it up, dodge rolling is the grease that keeps the game's gears running smoothly. With enough skill, it lets players turn impossible death traps into thrilling escapes. And that's why dodge rolling is my first game design takeaway from playing Enter the Gungeon. Dodging wouldn't be much fun without something to dodge. Fortunately, Enter the Gungeon has a broad variety of enemy types that each have their own unique attack pattern, which in turn lets the player develop unique tactics for defeating them. The basic enemy is the bulletkin. They slowly walk towards you and fire a stream of bullets. They're pretty easy to deal with and don't usually require any special tactics. Then you get larger enemies like the shotgunkin. These guys have high spread attacks that are harder to dodge, especially in groups. This forces the player to follow a rhythm, alternating between taking cover and moving into attack. Some enemies are very chaotic, like the bullats. They fire a ring of bouncy bullets that reflect off the walls and come at you from all angles. Positioning is very important when dealing with these guys because you could easily end up surrounded if you just charge in blindly. Some enemies are very aggressive, like the pinhead. Once aggroed, they charge at you and then detonate. You have to focus these guys down quickly or they'll hit you first. And then there's the larger enemies like the gun nut. They tend to have very powerful attacks that force you to learn their patterns and locate their openings. Now by themselves, none of these enemies are particularly challenging, but that's why they always attack in groups. Several different enemy types will be bundled together in the same room, and this means that the tactics you've developed for defeating each enemy also have to be combined. For example, let's take a look at this situation. The most dangerous enemies are these two hollow points, because they have rapid fire machine guns and can also teleport. They're approaching from above and below, meaning you'll be trapped in the entranceway if you don't act now. Moving downwards gives you more space, but there's also two fast-moving globulin down there. These guys die after one hit, so they're probably the top priority. You can then take out the lower hollow point before flipping the table and targeting the nearby bulletkin. This will give you some breathing room to work on the second hollow point and the big blobuloid hiding up top. You have to continuously build and rebuild these plans as you work your way through a floor. Enemies move around and appear from off screen. Many rooms also send in waves of reinforcements partway through to shake things up even further. This is something roguelikes do amazingly well, packaging a random assortment of small challenges into a unique, large challenge, forcing the player to adapt and think on their feet. And it's only possible because so much care was taken to make each enemy have a unique and identifiable attack pattern. That's why the enemy variety is my second game design takeaway from playing Enter the Gungeon. With such a wide variety of enemies, all with powerful attacks and all on the same screen at the same time, it would be very easy for the game to become a confusing mess. To solve this problem, Enter the Gungeon follows a few simple visual rules. First off, most enemy types have a distinctive appearance and silhouette. Some enemies have variants that admittedly do look kind of similar, but by and large you can tell the characters apart with just a quick glance. This is really important for working out your target priorities in the heat of a battle. Many enemy designs also contain yellow, which is an attention-catching colour that stands out against the brown and grey floors of the Gungeon. And the projectiles are even more eye-catching since they all glow the same shade of bright red. This helps you instantly work out whether a projectile is going to hurt you, which is really important in a game that places so much emphasis on avoiding damage. And since these bullets glow so brightly, you can actually see them pretty well out of your peripheral vision. This lets you focus on an enemy while still dodging the bullets, or focus on your character while still also shooting the enemy. When you put these rules together, Enter the Gungeon is surprisingly easy to follow for a game with so much chaos. And that's why a clear visual language is my third game design takeaway from playing Enter the Gungeon. So, what can we learn? Lots of games want to be challenging. A high difficulty forces players to retry sections many times as they build up their skills, and this makes it a great way to extend the length of a game. But not all types of challenge are equal. Some games are hard because they don't explain all the rules, or because they're full of trial and error, or because you're constantly fighting against the controls. There's a fine line between a genuine challenge and a game that's just trolling you. That difference is fairness. In a single-player game like Enter the Gungeon, fairness is about foreshadowing danger and providing the player with the tools that they will need to defeat it. If fairness is preserved, you can make a game extremely difficult without also making it extremely frustrating. When the player takes damage, they should feel like it was a genuine mistake that they could have avoided with just a little bit more skill. And I think this is why I keep entering the Gungeon. Even though I haven't cleared the game yet, and maybe I'll never clear it, it still feels like victory is within reach if only I give it one more shot. So, in closing, my game design takeaways from playing Enter the Gungeon were: Number 1. A powerful defensive option lets you massively ramp up a game's difficulty without making it impossible. Dodge rolling is basically a get-out-of-jail-free card, which means that the enemies can try their best to imprison you without the game ever becoming too unfair. And by placing a moment of vulnerability at the end of each roll, you also force the player to use it wisely. Number 2. Simple enemies become much more interesting when they attack in groups. Each enemy type has a simple and memorable pattern. This means that several different enemy types can be combined into the same encounter, and the player can still work out a plan for taking them all down. We could contrast this with the Dark Souls series, where the highly complex enemies lead to exciting 1v1 fights, but quickly become frustrating in larger groups. Number 3. A clear visual language lets you pack lots of stuff on the screen without overwhelming the player. Bullets immediately grab your attention, and enemies can be identified at just a glance. This helps the player see through the chaos and act effectively in the middle of a tense situation. As always, there's a whole lot more I could say about Enter the Gungeon, but this video is going to have to leave things here. If you enjoyed this video, why not check out some of my other ones, like this one on Hollow Knight? And if you want to see more game design videos in the future, don't forget to subscribe. For my day job, I'm making Patch Quest, an open-world roguelike where you explore a jungle, plunder ancient ruins, and ride on the backs of monsters. For the past 6 months, I've been overhauling the game from the ground up, and I've made a lot of exciting changes. That said, I'm not ready to share all the details just yet. If you want to get up-to-date development news, why not join the Patch Quest community Discord? I'm always posting in my devlog, and you'll even hear about upcoming videos. I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.